You know, when you walk through a garden, some flowers are just beautiful, and that's wonderful. But every once in a while, you find one that seems to be holding a secret. Today, we're going to lean in a little closer to one of those flowers, the snapdragon, to see if we can figure out what it's trying to say.
Okay, just take a look at this. With those tall, proud spikes and all those fiery colors, you can't deny the snapdragon is a showstopper. It's absolutely stunning. But what you're seeing right here, this incredible beauty, well, that's really just page one of a much deeper story.
And this is where things get really interesting. See, unlike a lot of other flowers, the snapdragon isn't just passive. It actually invites you to interact with it. If you give it a little squeeze on the sides, its petals part, just like a tiny mouth snapping open and then shut again. It's this playful little trick that holds the key to everything. So what on earth is this trying to tell us?
So let's do that. Let's really unpack this playful mystery. Because to understand what the snapdragon is saying, we've got to first look at what it is and why it's been so fascinating to people for literally centuries.
You know, even its fancy scientific name, Antirrhenium majus, gives us a pretty big clue. It comes from Old Greek words that basically mean like a snout. So right from the very beginning, people who were looking at this thing saw more than just petals. They saw a face, something that looked like a little creature.
And that simple observation really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. It's this idea that sometimes the biggest, most profound lessons aren't in the giant, obvious things. They're hidden in the small, everyday details that we might just walk right past.
Which brings us to the first major lesson hidden inside this flower, the secret of design. As we're about to see, the snapdragon's unique shape is no accident. It's a kind of living architecture, and it has a very, very specific purpose. So that two-lipped shape, the mouth that snaps open and shut, that's not just a cute feature. It's a gatekeeper. It was basically engineered by nature to handle a very precise kind of interaction.
So here's how this ingenious gatekeeping system works. The flower's mouth is actually too strong for most little insects to get into. Only a big, heavy pollinator, like a bumblebee, has enough oomph to actually pry it open. The bee then crawls all the way inside, gets totally dusted with pollen, and then takes off to the next flower. It's a brilliant, exclusive system of access.
And wow, doesn't that just paint a powerful picture? This biological design perfectly mirrors this piece of ancient wisdom about guarded openness. Just like the snapdragon is really selective about what it lets inside, this proverb advises us to be just as wise and discerning about what we allow into our hearts and minds. Okay, so we've seen a lesson in being wisely selective. But what about the act of opening itself? What about the squeeze? Well, that brings us to our next section, what that simple pressure can reveal about what's on the inside.
I mean, think about it. The very thing that makes the snapdragon famous is such a powerful metaphor for our own character. Life puts pressure on all of us, right? And when it squeezes, it reveals what's truly inside. Does that pressure bring out bitterness, or does it reveal grace? Does it expose our fears, or does it strengthen our faith? The pressure doesn't create those things, it just shows us what was already there all along.
And you see this idea echoed right here. The trying of faith, that test, that pressure. It's not presented as some terrible negative thing. It's a process that worketh patience, that actually refines our character. So in that light, pressure isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the very thing that helps us open up.
All right, so we've looked at the snapdragon in full bloom, when it's at its most beautiful. But the story doesn't stop when the petals fall. In fact, this next part might just be the most surprising of all, the transformation into what I'm calling the skull and the seed.
So here it is again in all its living glory. It's vibrant, it's colorful, it's reaching for the sky. Just take a moment and burn this image into your mind.
Because after these beautiful petals wither and fall away, something absolutely incredible happens. The dried-up seed pod that's left behind looks, and there's no other way to say it, uncannily like a tiny skull. But here's the amazing twist. This symbol of death is actually the very vessel carrying the seeds for the next generation. It's a perfect visual example of the cycle. From life, through an image of death, comes brand new life.
And this natural process is quietly acting out a huge spiritual theme. The idea that an ending is so often the doorway to renewal and even multiplication. What looks like the end of the flower is actually the start of something so much bigger.
So let's start pulling all of these threads together. As we zoom back out, we can start to really hear the silent sermon that this one little flower has been preaching from the garden all this time.
Let's just recap what we've discovered. This one flower has shown us what grace under pressure looks like. Its selective pollination is a perfect model of strength mixed with gentleness. Its bright colors are a lesson in bold expression, and its whole life is about growing upward, toward the light. It is, in every sense, a silent testimony.
And really, this one flower is just a tiny piece of a much, much larger story. This idea that nature itself is declaring something profound, that's an ancient one. The snapdragon is just one beautiful, intricate note in a massive, creative symphony.
So, here's what it all comes down to. The snapdragon is this beautiful reminder to just look closer, to see the design, the purpose, and the metaphor that's woven into the world all around us. Which really leaves us with one final thought to take with you. What quiet lessons, what little silent sermons are waiting in plain sight in your own life?